You arrive as night settles in, pushing open a heavy wooden door slick with years of touch. The wood is swollen from damp, scarred by knives and rings and fists that missed faces and found something sturdier instead. It gives way reluctantly, groaning like it resents having to let anyone else in. Warmth spills out first, thick and sour, followed by smoke that clings to your hair and cloth before you can decide if you want it. Inside, light flickers unevenly, candles fighting a losing battle against shadows soaked deep into the beams. The tavern does not greet you. It absorbs you. Sound dulls the moment the door closes behind your back, swallowed by low ceilings and bodies pressed too close together for politeness. Mud from the road smears into older mud underfoot, mixed with spilled ale, grease, and things no one remembers spilling. The floor sticks slightly when you step. Time loosens here. It always does. Outside, the night moves forward whether you like it or not. Inside, it circles, repeating itself in cups refilled, stories retold, arguments paused and resumed with professional patience. You stand for a moment, letting your eyes adjust, breathing in the layered smell of smoke, sweat, sour beer, damp wool, and the faint sweetness of something trying very hard to be stew. No one looks at you for long. Strangers are common. Attention costs energy, and energy is better spent on food, drink, or staying upright. You find space where space is allowed, a bench already warm from other bodies. When you sit, the wood complains quietly, then accepts you the way everything here eventually does. A mug appears in front of you without ceremony. The liquid inside is cloudy, sharp-smelling, alive with something that bubbles weakly against the rim. You drink because drinking is expected. It burns briefly, then settles into your stomach like a small, temporary peace treaty. Hunger shifts but does not leave. It never leaves. It just changes posture. Around you, life unfolds in fragments. A man laughs too loudly at his own joke, then coughs until his face reddens. Someone else hums a tune missing half its notes. A woman counts coins on the table, lips moving silently, then scoops them away with relief that looks practiced. Words blur together, dialects colliding, sentences abandoned halfway through because the point was never the words anyway. You listen more than you speak. Listening is safer. Stories drift past you in pieces. Complaints about taxes, about weather that refuses to behave, about lords who eat better than God intended. The humor is dry, sharpened by repetition. Sarcasm survives where hope has learned to be careful. You feel yourself relax into the rhythm, shoulders lowering, breath slowing, as if the tavern has decided you are allowed to exist here for now. Fire crackles somewhere near the center of the room, fed sparingly. Wood is expensive. Warmth is rationed. Smoke curls lazily upward, staining the ceiling darker than it already is. Your eyes sting just enough to remind you where you are. No one bothers wiping tears away. Everyone looks like that here. Food arrives eventually, carried in bowls chipped and mismatched, set down with the dull confidence of something that knows it will be eaten regardless of quality. The stew is thin, mostly broth, dotted with vegetables that have surrendered their flavor hours ago. You eat slowly, letting each mouthful last longer than it deserves. Bread follows, dark and dense, broken by hand, crumbs carefully corralled and rescued. Waste is noticed. Waste is remembered. As the night deepens, bodies lean closer together. The cold outside presses against the walls, curious but patient. Inside, conversations thicken, then thin again. Arguments spark and fade. Someone sings, off-key and earnest, until another voice joins in. Then another, building something almost harmonious before collapsing into laughter. The sound fills the room briefly, then settles back into murmur. Joy is allowed here, but only in small doses. You feel the weight of the day settle fully into your bones now that there is nothing left to distract it. Your feet ache. Your back hums with dull complaint. You shift on the bench, finding a position that hurts slightly less. This, you realize, is comfort by local standards. A man across from you stares into his cup as if waiting for it to explain something. He looks up suddenly and meets your eyes, then nods once, a gesture stripped of curiosity, heavy with recognition. You both look away. That is enough connection for one night. The tavern exists because the world outside demands it. It is a pause between hunger and sleep, between labor and labor again. People come here not to escape their lives, but to sit beside them for a while, to feel less alone in the carrying of them. You feel that now, the quiet relief of shared endurance. Hours slide by without clear edges. Candles shorten. The fire dims. One by one, people drift out, pulled back into the night they came from. Each departure lets in a brief breath of cold and silence before the door closes again, sealing the room back into itself. Eventually, you stand because standing feels necessary, not because you are ready. The bench releases you reluctantly. Your legs protest, then comply. You make your way toward the door, stepping carefully around sprawled feet and forgotten cups. The tavern keeper watches without interest, counting something invisible behind tired eyes. Outside, the night has settled fully. The road waits, unchanged, damp and dark, reflecting faint light from the tavern windows. You step away from the door, and it closes behind you with finality that feels temporary. Nothing here ever truly closes. It only pauses. You move toward whatever shelter has allowed you before, guided by memory and necessity. The cold sharpens, slipping under your clothes, finding places the fire could not reach. You walk slower now, conserving heat, conserving energy, conserving yourself. The house you enter is smaller, quieter, stripped of distraction. Straw waits on the floor, flattened and familiar. You lower yourself carefully, muscles sighing with relief that feels almost painful. The smell here is simpler. Damp earth, old wood, human presence worn smooth by repetition. Sleep does not arrive immediately. It never does. Your mind replays fragments from the tavern. Snatches of laughter, the weight of the mug in your hand, the brief warmth of shared space. Hunger murmurs, but more softly now. Exhaustion leans heavier, insistent. Somewhere outside, the wind moves through bare branches, sounding like distant surf. Somewhere closer, someone turns in their sleep, straw rustling, breath-changing rhythm. You listen because listening has become habit. Eventually, your thoughts loosen. Edges blur. The world narrows to the slow rise and fall of your chest, the steady ache of a body used and not yet broken. Medieval life does not offer resolution. It offers repetition. And in that repetition, sleep finally finds you, not as escape, but as another small endurance, carried quietly through the dark beneath beams stained by smoke and years, in a world that never fully closes its doors. The air presses in on you from every direction, thick with shared breath and the slow memory of smoke. It curls upward from hearth and pipe alike, staining the rafters a deeper black than night ever manages, then settles again, patient, into lungs that have learned not to complain. Each inhale tastes faintly of ash and sour ale, of damp wool and human effort. You breathe anyway. Everyone does. There is no alternative that doesn't involve leaving, and leaving would mean cold. The benches beneath you are worn smooth by generations of bodies shifting, waiting, enduring. The wood is warm, not kindly warm, but used warm, heat borrowed from others and passed along without consent. When you move, the bench answers with a low groan, as if reminding you how many have sat exactly where you are now, making the same small adjustments, seeking the same marginal comfort. Light does not shine here. It moves. It drifts across faces and fragments. An eye-catching reflection, a hand wrapped around a mug, the sharp angle of a cheekbone briefly revealed before shadow takes it back. Candles sputter and lean, their flames stretched thin by drafts they cannot defeat. You never see a whole person at once. Just pieces. Enough to recognize, not enough to intrude. Every sound carries. A cough cuts through conversation like a warning bell, then settles into embarrassed silence. Wood scrapes against wood. A mug meets a table too hard. A murmur begins, falters, dies. The room listens constantly. Closeness forces patience. There is nowhere for irritation to go without becoming everyone's problem. Warmth exists undeniably, but it is crowded, uneven, temporary. You lean into it while you can knowing it will fade the moment too many bodies stand up at once. The room shapes you quietly, lowers your voice, slows your movements, teaches you that survival here depends on fitting yourself carefully into the space allowed. Ale arrives the way everything does here without asking if you want it. A mug is set down with a dull, practiced thud, liquid inside cloudy and tired, a color that suggests grain remembered rather than celebrated.
No foam. No prive.
Just wait. It smells faintly sour, alive in a way that feels intentional rather than dangerous. You do not inspect it. Inspection is for people with options. You lift the mug slowly. Lips meet the rim with caution learned early. The first swallow is always measured, a test. It slides down thick and flat, settling into your stomach like a blanket that used to be warmer. It is not pleasure. It is necessity, safer than water that carries too many stories, heavier than hope that evaporates too quickly. You drink again, slightly deeper this time. Hunger recoils, not defeated, just pushed back far enough to stop speaking. Around you, others do the same. Mugs rise and fall in unspoken rhythm. No one drinks fast. Speed invites regret. Swallows are counted subconsciously, spaced out to make forgetting last longer than the liquid itself. Ale dulls the sharpest edges of thought, blurring worries into shapes too soft to argue with. The room exhales collectively as shoulders drop a fraction. Stories loosen but rarely rise. Someone begins a tale, then abandons it halfway through, realizing the ending would require energy. Complaints surface instead about weather, about taxes, about aches that have learned your name. Sarcasm survives best here, dry and economical. A remark lands. A corner of the room exhales a short laugh, quickly swallowed, as if joy itself might attract attention. Laughter flickers, brief and cautious, allowed only in doses that will not disrupt the balance. Forgetting becomes the goal, not escape, just rest. A pause from remembering how tomorrow will feel. Ale offers that, imperfectly, temporarily. You take another sip, slower now, letting the warmth spread thinly through your chest. For a while, that is enough. Bodies gather because the room demands it. Benches fill, shoulders touch, knees knock under the table without apology. Farmers sit beside laborers, travelers beside men who have never left the valley that named them. You are close enough to smell each other, earth, sweat, smoke, old leather, yet far enough apart to remain entirely separate. Proximity here is practical, not intimate. Words are chosen with care. Names are rarely offered. Stories, when they appear, are trimmed of detail, stripped of anything that might invite questions. You speak about weather because weather cannot be blamed. You complain about roads because roads do not argue back. Anything closer to truth is kept folded away, pressed into the chest like a document that could cause trouble if unfolded in public. Silence does much of the work. It stretches comfortably between mugs and elbows, interrupted only when necessary. Someone listens more than they speak. Someone speaks too much and learns quickly to stop. Eyes meet briefly, then slide away. Recognition is allowed. Curiosity is not. Everyone here understands that closeness does not promise safety. Sometimes it invites the opposite. Each person carries their life into the room like a weight set down temporarily at their feet. Loss sits beside hunger. Fatigue leans against old anger. Fear shares space with habit. The tavern holds all of it without comment. A container large enough for many lives but too shallow to hold any of them fully. You feel it, the strange comfort of being surrounded without being known. No one reaches for you. No one expects you to explain yourself. For a few hours, your burdens remain yours alone, untouched by the press of other bodies. The room hums with existence, crowded yet solitary. A shared pause where lives overlap without ever truly connecting. Behind the counter, the night never settles. It circles. Hands pour without flourish, wipe without complaint, collect coins already warm from other palms. Work moves in loops here, repeated until it stops feeling like action and starts feeling like posture. You watch women move through smoke and sound with a practiced awareness that never fully relaxes. They know where to stand, how to angle their bodies, when to meet a gaze and when to let it slide past as if it never existed. Their voices are used sparingly. There is no reward for volume. Orders are remembered, not written. Spills are handled before they are noticed. A mug disappears, another appears. The counter is wiped so often it shines dully, not clean, just worn smooth by endurance. They carry weight in their wrists and shoulders, the kind that settles in quietly and never leaves. Pain becomes background. Efficiency becomes armor. They are watched more than they are heard. Eyes linger too long, then look away when met. Comments land sideways, wrapped in humor thin enough to cut. The women respond with practiced neutrality, a smile shaped carefully to discourage continuation without inviting challenge. The room pretends not to notice. The room always pretends. The tavern offers income, which is not nothing. It also offers exposure, which costs more than it pays. You feel the tension woven into routine, the way each movement balances speed against caution, the way proximity is managed without acknowledging why it must be managed at all. Endurance here is invisible because it repeats nightly. Familiar labor stops being seen as labor at all. When the rush thins, they do not rest. They count. They clean. They prepare for the next wave of thirst and noise. Their presence holds the room together without being thanked for it. You notice this quietly, because noticing is the only recognition available, and even that must be kept to yourself. Illness settles into the tavern the way smoke does, quietly, insistently, without asking permission. A cough lingers too long at one table, dry and stubborn, then appears again somewhere else as if it walked there on its own. Skin shines with fever in the candlelight, a sheen that looks almost like sweat until you notice how still the body beneath it has gone. Breath carries more than words here. It always has. No one names it. Naming things gives them weight, and weight attracts attention. Instead, people shift slightly away, open space without comment. Pretend drafts are the reason they lean back. A mug is passed, then not passed again. Someone leaves early, blamed on tiredness rather than fear. The room adapts without discussion. It always does. Hands brush accidentally, linger half a second too long, then separate. The warmth that comforted earlier now feels suspicious. You become aware of your own breathing, its depth, its rhythm, the way it fogs the air briefly before vanishing. Illness travels easily here, carried by touch and breath and the simple fact of bodies gathered too close for too long. Knowledge is thin. Acceptance is thick. You notice how sickness blends into routine. Someone works through it. Someone drinks through it. Someone sits very still, conserving strength they no longer have much of. Prayers are muttered without urgency, folded into other thoughts. No one panics. Panic would require believing control was possible. The tavern absorbs this too. It does not clear out. It does not close. Life does not pause just because bodies fail. Disease becomes another presence in the room, as familiar as smoke, as unavoidable as hunger. You sit with it, breathing shallowly now, not from fear exactly, but from instinct. In a world like this, illness is not interruption. It is atmosphere. Anger lives here the way embers do, buried, glowing, rarely allowed air. You feel it in tightened jaws, in hands that grip mugs a little too firmly, in pauses that last a breath longer than necessary. Grievances accumulate quietly. They are swallowed because shouting requires energy, and energy is already spoken for. Everyone knows what might happen if tempers are fed instead of contained. Violence is possible. That knowledge hangs in the room like a rule no one needs to explain. Knives exist. Fists exist. Histories exist. But most nights, nothing happens. Exhaustion keeps better order than fear ever could. When your body aches this deeply, chaos feels like unnecessary labor. Silence is cheaper. You watch small provocations pass without ignition. A spilled drink, careless word, a look held a moment too long. Each one is assessed, weighed against hunger, cold, tomorrow. Most are released back into the air.